Welcome to the Madison Miller Podcast. Today is Tuesday, July 14th, 2020. Today I'm going to discuss an NBA star that was reportedly opting out, potentially not opting out. We'll get to that, and we'll discuss this morning's KBO results, look ahead to tomorrow's games, go over soccer games in La Liga, Premier League, and MLS, and look ahead to today's games in both the Premier League and Major League Soccer. I'll do my MLB first baseman rankings, and I'll do my 2012 top 10 movies. First, I want to talk about the NBA and a certain superstar in the league potentially coming back to the restart after it was reported that this person would opt out. And I'm talking about Indiana Pacers star Victor Oladipo. There were reports out from Shams yesterday saying that he was practicing and is likely to join his team in Orlando. And that's crazy. You wouldn't have thought that, huh? But he tweets yesterday, there's growing belief that Pacers star Victor Oladipo will attempt to play in the NBA's restarted season after multiple strong team practices in Orlando. And the sources inside the bubble tell Shams. And then Shams follows it up by saying that Oladipo has been fully practicing 5-on-5 scrimmages in Orlando, and there's no optimism around his playing status. And don't forget, he was going to opt out due to injury, not due to COVID concerns. It was because of his injury and the fact that he's doing better and he could potentially be back for the Pacers. That is huge for that team. That only makes that team better, although I did make the case that they wouldn't suffer so greatly without him because of how well they played the season without him. But putting him back in the lineup, a healthy Victor Oladipo with Malcolm Brogdon and with Domantas Sabonis, that could be a surprise player in the Eastern Conference playoffs. So that is huge news for the NBA. And there was actually rumors that James Harden had tested positive for coronavirus, and that the star is feeling fine and working out and may travel with Russell Westbrook to Orlando when Westbrook clears from the virus. So I guess James Harden does not have the virus, but it was just a rumor threw out there by an uneducated source, because this Shams report is saying that he's going to travel with Westbrook when Westbrook's clear, and I just think that him and Westbrook are buddies, and that's probably where that rumor came from, that he had tested positive. But both Rocket stars should be back with the team in Orlando, and the Victor Oladipo news is excellent, and that makes the playoffs all the more interesting. And obviously Oladipo is somebody that is under a little pressure to, perform here in the playoffs, because he's due for a new contract at the end of next season. He's somebody that is rumored to be in a trade, potentially, because of the him being in the contract year. It's similar to Paul George, and there's some rumors that he wanted out of the small market. There's going to be teams like the Knicks and the Bulls and maybe some actual contenders like maybe the Lakers. I could see going after Victor Oladipo, or the Clippers if they lose one of the Paul George or Kawhi Leonard within the next couple years. So Oladipo's going to have some strong suitors both via trade and via free agency. I don't think he'll end up back with the Thunder or back with the Magic. That'd be just too weird. Maybe the Raptors, if, say, they let go of Lowry or they trade him away, or they let go of Ibaka and Gasol, and that clears cap space, and they can have a strong perimeter foundation of Oladipo and Siakam. That would be really interesting. So that's like a dark horse for Oladipo to keep an eye out for as well. So hopefully Oladipo plays. That'd be big for the league, big for the Pacers, and it would make the NBA restart all the more interesting. Now we'll talk about the KBO results from this morning and look ahead to tomorrow's games. The results in this league are always interesting, and the sad part is that we won't be covering this league much longer as MLB is back in 9 days. So this is probably going to be the last week of me covering KBO, and maybe once the playoffs roll around, I'll be back covering this sport. So your results from this morning: SK over Doosan, 12-4. KT over Hanwha, 7-2. Latte over LG, 5-0. Kaiwoom over NC, 5-1. And Samsung over Kia, 5-0. So 4-5 in terms of the picks, are 4 for 5. And then tomorrow's games, 6:30 p.m. in Korea, 5:30 a.m. Eastern. Kia, Samsung, LG, Latte, NC, Kaiwoom, SK, Doosan, and Hanwha and KT. I am going to take the Tigers to bounce back. I'm going to take the Twins to bounce back. I'm going to take the Dinos to bounce back. I'm going to take the Bears to bounce back. And I think that the Wiz are going to be the only team that will win tomorrow that won this morning. So give me the Wiz to knock off Hanwha. And obviously Hanwha is the very worst team in the KBO. Now I'm going to go over the results from Premier League and La Liga from yesterday and look ahead to today's Premier League match. We'll start with La Liga only because there's no La Liga games until Thursday. Real Sociedad over Villarreal, 2-1. Real Sociedad 16-6-14, 54 points. And Villarreal 17-6-13, 57 points. Alaves and Getafe ended in a 0-0 draw. Alaves 9-9-18, 36 points. And Getafe 14-12-10, 54 points. Real Madrid over Granada 2-1. Madrid 25-8-3, 83 points. And Granada 14-8-14 with 50 points. And now to the Premier League. Only one match yesterday. Manchester United and Southampton ended in a 2-2 tie. United 16-11-8, 59 points. Southampton 13-6-16, 45 points. And looking ahead to today, 3:15 p.m. Eastern, Chelsea hosts Norwich City. Chelsea 18-6-11 with 60 points. And Norwich City 5-6-24, 21 points. Chelsea is under a lot of pressure to win out here and secure a top 4 finish. They have 4 more matches left, including today. They are coming off the bad loss against Sheffield United. They're home now against the bad Norwich City team, who is the worst team in the Premier League. So I think Chelsea will get it done, led by Timo Werner and Willian. So give me Chelsea to dominate Norwich City here to get the victory. All right, now we'll do Major League Soccer. Go over those results and look ahead to tonight's games, I should say. So without further ado, here we go. LAFC and Houston Dynamo ended in a 3-3 draw. That's surprising. The first goal of the game by LAFC was scored by Bradley Wright Phillips in the 19th minute, and that was for LAFC. My bad. That tied it at 1, but the goal that gave the Houston Dynamo a 1-0 lead was in the 9th minute of the game, scored by Jonathan Rodriguez to give the Dynamo, or I'm sorry, Jose Mimo Rodriguez to give the team a 1-0 lead. And then Wright Phillips ties it at 1 apiece. Rodriguez again gives the Dynamo a 2-1 lead. And then right before the break, the Dynamo go up 3-1 on a goal by Albert Ellis. So they're up 3-1 at the break. Here comes LAFC to make it 3-2. Diego Rossi scores, and to tie it at 3 apiece 6 minutes later in the 69th minute, the tying goal was scored by Brian Rodriguez. So LAFC and Houston Dynamo ends in a 3-3 draw. And a surprising result last night, Portland over the LA Galaxy 2-1. This was 0-0 at the break. And then the first goal of the game for the Timbers was scored by Jeremy Ebabisi. And then Portland goes up 2-0 on a goal in the 66th minute by Sebastian Blanco. And then you get a red card for Portland. And that was given to Dario Zubrek, the defender. And then LA Galaxy gets on the board right before extra time in the second half on a goal by Javier Hernandez, who's their best player. So he puts them on the board, and Portland comes away with a 2-1 victory. This morning, probably the most surprising result in the tournament so far, Chicago Fire over the Seattle Sounders 2-1. This was 0-0 at the break as well this morning. And the first goal of the game in the 52nd minute by the Fire was scored by Robert Berrick to give the Fire a 1-0 lead. Then Seattle ties the game at 1 apiece in the 77th minute on a goal by Handwalla Buana. And then in the 84th minute, the Fire take a 2-1 lead in the 84th minute on a goal by Mauricio Pineda. So the Fire come away with a surprising win here in Group B play. 2 games tonight at 8 o'clock p.m. You have Orlando City against NYCFC. Tough call here. NYCFC has not scored a goal this season, and people are down on the team. I actually think that they're going to rally this week and come away with a victory tonight over Orlando City, led by their core of Maximiliano Morales and Herbert Arroyo dos Santos and Valentin Castellanos, and they'll lead their team to a victory in what should be a competitive game tonight. And then Philadelphia and Inter Miami at 10:30. So 2 really good Group A matches. I'm going to keep riding the Philadelphia train. Philadelphia is a really good team. They won their first match over NYCFC on Thursday. They'll get it done, led by Brendan Aronson and Alejandro Bedoya. So give me the Philadelphia Union to knock off Inter Miami tonight at 10:30 p.m. Eastern. There's no morning game tomorrow. We have a night game tomorrow, so we'll preview and pick it on tomorrow's podcast. We have some breaking news right now in the NFL. Chris Jones of the Kansas City Chiefs signed a mega contract extension, 4-year deal, big money, reported by Ian Rappaport, and then its potential rare franchise deadline deal. So that's really good for Chris Jones. A lot of people expected the Chiefs to either trade him or let him play on the tag. That's amazing that the Chiefs got this done. Chris Jones is a very good player, the best defensive player arguably on the Chiefs. And this was a big-time extension. So the Chiefs pretty much have given themselves a plus off season just because they extended their two most important players, arguably one on each side of the ball with Mahomes, and then on the other side with Chris Jones. So big time extension for the Chiefs. What I thought was going to end up happening with Chris Jones with the Mahomes extension coming, I really thought that there's a chance that Chris Jones would be traded. I thought that the Eagles and the Vikings and the Cowboys would have been in play for him, but the Chiefs said, screw that, we're going to pay you too. And very good by the Chiefs. And with him back in the fold long term, with him and Mahomes both locked up long term, you could really bank on them being a contender for the next half decade and even more, as long as Mahomes is healthy and Chris Jones stays healthy. I know there are some other players that they have to take care of as well down the road. Travis Kelce and even Tyreek Hill, just to name a few of Patrick Mahomes' weapons. And that team is only going to be arguably better than they were last year, because I really do like the addition of Clyde Edwards-Helaire for that offense. It was just a perfect fit for Andy Reid in that offense. And their defense is not the best, but they did have to lock up Chris Jones, in my opinion. And they did it. And like I said, they really should be given an A offseason. And that's rare for a Super Bowl champ to do that. Follow up a Super Bowl win and try to repeat. You don't see repeat winners in the NFL very often. I think this is a very likely opportunity for them to repeat. And in the previous Super Bowl champions, it hasn't really gone well. You haven't seen a repeat winner since the Patriots in 2004, 2005. And obviously, 2019, the Patriots won that Super Bowl, 2018-19. And then what happened to the Patriots next year? Lost in the first round. Then Brady leaves. And now they have Cam Newton. The year before wound up being the Eagles, but that was with Nick Foles, not Carson Wentz. And they're still a contender, but they haven't really won a big game, arguably, since then. Although you could argue that Bears game in the playoffs, but really the Bears kind of handed it to them more than anything, I thought, because the kicker missed the field goal at the end. The Bears should have won that game. And then obviously the Cowboys, Jason Garrett on the opposite sideline. In the last 2 years of the Eagles are trying to defend their title, especially last year. And then after that was the Patriots. And then they almost repeated. If Brady doesn't fumble, they repeat. So the Patriots came close to repeating. And then before that, Denver, they obviously were not repeating. Peyton Manning retired and they had quarterback questions. Before that was New England. And that Patriots team lost to Denver. Close game in the AFC title game. So that 2015-16 Patriots team did have a chance to repeat. And they were a good team too, that Patriot team. And then the Seahawks came darn close to repeating too with Pete Carroll draws up the right play in the Super Bowl. Maybe the Seahawks repeat. So they came close. So there's a couple close calls for repeats, but we haven't had a repeat winner in a long time. And I think that the Chiefs have an excellent shot to do so with their two best players locked up long term. So there's not going to be turmoil surrounding them for that. So a big round of applause for the Chiefs for that. Now I'm going to get to my Major League Baseball first baseman rankings. It's surprisingly loaded, this position, especially in the National League. You'll see a majority of the American League first baseman on the bottom half of the list and the majority of the National League first baseman on the top of the list. But this was obviously a fun one to do. Number 30, Evan White of the Mariners. He hasn't played a big league game yet, so that's why he's 30. Highly touted prospect. I won't be shocked if he produces for them, because obviously he was highly touted and expectations are pretty high. But if you're a rookie that's never played a game in your life, especially at a position where there's a lot of talent at, then you're doomed for the bottom. But there are some prospects that could very well be higher on these lists because of their potential and expectations. 29, Ronald Guzman of the Texas Rangers. Guzman showed flashes, but doesn't have the best stats in the world. His OPS is poor. Batting average is poor. 28, Chris Davis, Orioles. I thought about putting Chris Davis number 30, but Chris Davis obviously had an atrocious year last year. His contract is the worst in baseball, arguably the worst in all sports. And the Orioles are just stuck with it for a while. And it'll be interesting to see how he does in his 60-game span. 27, Jesus Aguilar of the Marlins. Aguilar, somebody that had that great year with the Brewers a couple years ago and then regressed, as I predicted. And then he gets traded to the Rays. Performs a little better, but I just don't think he's what he showed in 2018. That's why he's this low. 26, Ryan O'Hearn, Royals. He regressed last year after 2018 from a batting average standpoint, but he's a good power hitter. I'm not convinced that he's the first baseman of the future of the Royals. 25, Albert Pujols, Angels. Pujols, it's sad to see him in the bottom 10 of this list, but it's just the reality of the situation. He's overpaid at this point of his career. He put up some good numbers last year, but because of age and contract, he's very low on this list. 24, Justin Smoke, Brewers. Justin Smoke's been up and down. He was an all-star a couple years ago. Good power hitter, but doesn't hit for average. 23, Ryan McMahon, Rockies. McMahon's numbers aren't that strong either, but I think that playing in Coors could benefit him, which would make his stats look a little bit better than he actually is. 22, Mitch Moreland, Red Sox. Mitch Moreland did not have that great of a year last year, but he's just a veteran that's been in a lot of big games with both the Red Sox and the Rangers. So I won't be surprised if he is better than he was last year in this 60-game span. Number 21, Jai-Man Choi of the Rays. Jai-Man Choi showed flashes with both his stints with the Yankees, and I think he had a stint with the Brewers as well, and then played very well at Tampa Bay last year. But if he struggles, I won't be shocked if Nate Lau is their first baseman, or even Brendan McKay, but they would probably DH Brendan McKay. So I think Jai-Man Choi is somebody that has shown some potential, but I'm not convinced that he's going to be the Rays' first baseman by the end of the season. Number 20, CJ Cron of the Tigers. I think this was a smart free agency pickup for Detroit. He's somebody that I think could be trade bait at the deadline because the Tigers are not very good. A team like Tampa Bay, I think, could be in play for CJ Cron. And I think that Cron would be really good in Tampa Bay. And some other teams that have holes at first base or teams that could potentially have an injury and need somebody. So, should be interesting to see if Cron finishes the season with the Tigers or not. And if I had to bet, I'd say no. 19, Eric Thames, Nationals. Eric Thames is somebody that obviously was playing, I believe, in the KBO for a couple years, and he came over to Milwaukee and was really good, and then he regressed, and then he was better again, and then now he's on the Nationals. I think that Thames has potential to be very good, but if he is not that good, or if there's an injury, obviously, the Nationals become like a first base needy team at the trade deadline. Obviously, Jesus Aguilar or CJ Kroon could be options. Or the next guy I'm going to talk about, and that's number 18 on the list, Brandon Belt of the Giants. I mentioned him yesterday and how I think that Buster Posey could be their first baseman potentially next year. But Bell is somebody that I think could be trade bait as well because I don't think the Giants are going to be very good. I think Tampa Bay and the Nationals are potential candidates for Brandon Belt's services. But Brandon Belt is not a bad player. He just really hasn't been all that special over the last couple of seasons. Number 17, Eric Hosmer of the Padres. He's just super duper overpaid at this point of his career. He obviously won a World Series with the Royals, and his best years were with the Royals. And then the Padres paid him like he was Freddie Freeman, and he really hasn't been that. And obviously one of the worst contracts in baseball. And it had not been for Chris Davis, he would be the first baseman with the worst contract. So Hosmer just been mediocre with the Padres. Number 16, Luke Voit, Yankees. Luke Voigt's been a very streaky player since coming over to the Yankees in the trade with the Cardinals. He's very streaky, not a bad average hitter, and he finished so poor last year that he was left off the postseason roster for the Yankees, and first base for them in the playoffs was Mike Ford and Edwin Encarnacion and DJ LeMahieu. Like, they had a bunch of different guys at first base in the postseason last year, and I think Voit is somebody that I think could benefit from the shortened season because he's somebody that's capable of getting hot and potentially carrying them. 15, Carlos Santana, Indians. Carlos Santana was awesome last year, but he's aging, and I think the production could potentially decline this year and going forward. But solid player, has played in a lot of big games, obviously. 14, Christian Walker, Diamondbacks. Christian Walker was awesome last year. I think that he's a player on the rise. He's the first baseman of the future for the Diamondbacks. And it's funny, they made out really well in the Paul Goldschmidt deal, as I've talked about on this podcast several times. 13, Yuli Gurriel, Astros. Yuli Gurriel is really interesting. He had a career year last year, but his defense is not great at first base, and that has cost him a top 10 ranking on this list. I won't be shocked if his offense slips a little bit, but he's coming off the best year of his career for sure. 12, Joey Votto, Reds. It's very sad that Joey Votto is not in the top 10, but it's the reality of the situation. His numbers are slipping. His numbers have slipped the last 2 years. He's no longer the best player on the Reds, and that is Eugenio Suarez, as you'll see him on the third base rankings, which will be coming to you on Thursday. And Votto, great career, almost won the MVP in 2016 with the Reds, but he's on the decline, unfortunately, and I won't be shocked if he's a DH down the road. 11, Max Muncy, Dodgers. Muncy, interesting player. 2 great years with the Dodgers since he's joined them. I think that he's somebody that is a keeper for them long term. I think he's one of the more underrated players in this lineup due to the presence of Mookie Betts and Cody Bellinger. And I think that he'll have another good year this year with the Dodgers. 10, Matt Olson, Athletics. Matt Olson's really, really good. I think, like Muncy, overshadowed in his own lineup. That's because of Matt Chapman and Stephen Piscotty and Chris Davis. So I think Matt Olson really has flown under the radar, and he's really emerged as a top 10 first baseman in all of baseball. And he has very good power as well. 9, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Blue Jays. I think this is the breakout first baseman of the season. He was not good last year, but I really do think with the position change that will absolutely help him and his development. And I think there's a chance that he hits, say, 15 home runs this year, in which in a 162-game season, that could have been like 33 homers, per se. So I do expect a bounce back and a little bit of an FU, don't forget about me kind of year for Vlad Guerrero Jr. after expectations were through the roof last year, and he was a little disappointing. 8, Miguel Sano, Twins. Miguel Sano was awesome last year. He finally put it all together. I think his numbers could potentially dip this year, but I do think that he is a top 10 first baseman right now, and he's just somebody that had to deal with a position move. And I think that will benefit Guerrero, like it has benefited here for Sano. And I think that he'll be around for Minnesota for a long time. 7, Josh Bell, Pirates. Josh Bell had the best year of his career last year as well. He's obviously going to be a mainstay with the Pirates, you would think. But although there's been trade chatter around Bell, but I don't know if they'll actually pull the trigger on it. That'd be really hard for them to do, obviously. Number 6, Rhys Hoskins, Philadelphia Phillies. Hoskins could very well be a DH down the road, but the DH spot for the Phillies right now is occupied by Jay Bruce. Hoskins is somebody that obviously broke onto the scene in 2017 and is a great power hitter and benefits from being in the small ballpark in Philadelphia. 5, Jose Abreu, White Sox. This is the best first baseman in the American League. He was phenomenal last year, made the All-Star team. I think that he's forgotten about in terms of really good first baseman. I think he'll have another good year for the White Sox as well. Number 4, Pete Alonso, Mets. Pete Alonso obviously had a rookie season to remember. His rookie season was very reminiscent to Aaron Judge's from 2017. That's ironic because Judge is a Yankee, Alonso's a Met. And I think Alonso will be good again this year, but I don't think he's a top 3 first baseman because his defensive metrics are not special, or let alone great. 3, Anthony Rizzo, Cubs. Anthony Rizzo quietly had a very good year last year, and nobody talks about it because the Cubs had that bad collapse at the end of the season and did not make the playoffs and result of it. I think Rizzo is going to have a big year this year. He's somebody that I think gets forgotten about, talking about good first baseman, and it's unfortunate because I think that he's been supplanted on his own team by a couple guys, but that doesn't dismiss the talented player that Anthony Rizzo still is. 2, Paul Goldschmidt, Cardinals. Paul Goldschmidt had a weird year last year. Got off to a good start and then collapsed, and then it got hot, and then it was cold, and then people in the media were saying that the Cardinals lost the Goldschmidt deal, and they should have had Luke Voigt or Christian Walker and Carson Kelly and Luke Weaver and yada yada. I think all of that could very well motivate Paul Goldschmidt this year, and I expect him to have a better year this year than last year. He did not make the All-Star team last year, which is sad because Paul Goldschmidt made the All-Star team every year between 2013 and 18 with the Diamondbacks and was perceived as the best first baseman in baseball, but I obviously have that as another player coming into the season, and that is Freddie Freeman of the Atlanta Braves. Freddie Freeman tested positive for COVID, and he should be back with the Braves sometime soon and could very well be ready for opening day. Freddie Freeman had an absolutely awesome season last year, and arguably the best one of his career, and I think that, honestly, that he's being overshadowed in his own lineup because of Ronald Acuna Jr., but Freddie Freeman deserves all the love he can get. Last season, missed only 4 games. He had a career-high 38 home runs and a career-high 121 RBIs, hit .295, on base of .389, slugging .549, OPS .938, and an OPS plus of .136. So Freddie Freeman was just awesome last year, and he obviously gets my honor for the preseason number 1 first baseman of 2020. So obviously tomorrow we'll do second baseman rankings, which should be very, very interesting. Thursday we'll do third base, and Friday we'll do shortstop, and then next Monday we'll do outfielders. Next Tuesday we'll do the pitchers, and then the day before the season we'll do the relievers. And then my mega predictions show will come out on Wednesday, and I'm going to have a couple podcast guests on throughout this week and next week as we preview and predict how the season will play out. And last but not least, I'm going to do my 2012 top 10 movies. This was an interesting list to put together. 2 honorable mentions, The Master and The Amazing Spider-Man, and the actual top 10. Number 10, The Dark Knight Rises. This movie was quite interesting. Obviously a very interesting movie that came out in July of 2012, 165 minutes long. Hans Zimmer does the music. Directed by Chris Nolan, produced by Nolan, Emma Thomas, and Charles Roven, screenplayed by Nolan and Jonathan Nolan, and story by Chris Nolan and David S. Goyer, starring Christian Bale, Michael Caine, Gary Oldman, Anne Hathaway, Tom Hardy, Marion Cotillard, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and Morgan Freeman. So a good cast here, and obviously it's about the DC Comics and Batman and the final installment, and is the sequel to The Dark Knight. And 8 years after the events of The Dark Knight, the revolutionary Bane forces Bruce Wayne to resume his role as Batman and save Gotham City from nuclear destruction. Number 9, The Broken Circle Breakdown. Interesting movie, a drama film directed by Felix van Grogeen, produced by Dirk Impens, Franz von Gestel, Laurette Schillings, and Arnold Heslenfeld, written by Johan Heldenberg and Meek Dobles, and screenplayed by Carl Juice and Felix van Grogeen, and starring Johan Heldenberg and Vriel Baetens. The music by Jorn Eriksson. Came out in October of 2012, 111 minutes long, and this was a very interesting movie about a couple that met, and then they had a child who unfortunately develops cancer, and it quickly deteriorates, and the daughter passes away, and it's just unfortunate. And then the two main characters' relationship had started to fall apart because of the passing of the daughter. 8, Taboo. Interesting movie, Portuguese independent black and white drama film directed by Miguel Gomes, and the title which references to F.W. Murnau's silent film of the same name. Produced by Sandro Aguilar and Luis Urbano, written by Miguel Gomes and Mariano Ricardo, starring Teresa Madruga. Came out in February of 2012 in Berlin and April 2012 in Portugal. 118 minutes long, and there's different parts of this movie. That there's a prologue, and then there's the Paradise Lost, which is part 1, and then there's Paradise, And this is obviously about a group that goes away to paradise and they settle their lives there and so forth. Seventh, Lore. Interesting film. A German-British Australian historical drama film based on Rachel Seifert's much awarded 2001 novel The Dark Room, written by Robin McCreary and the film's director Kate Shortland. Produced by Karsten Stoder, Liz Watts, Paul Welsh, and Benny Dreschel. Screenplayed by Robin McCreary and Kate Shortland. Starring Sakia Rosenthal, Philip Weigratz, Kay Molina, Nellie Trebs, and Ursina Lardy. The music by Max Richter. Came out in 2012 in September in Australia and in Germany in October. 109 minutes long. In sixth, To the Wonder. To the Wonder was an interesting film, an American experimental romantic drama film written and directed by Terrence Malick, starring Ben Affleck, Olga Kurylenko, Rachel McAdams, and Javier Bardem. Filmed in Oklahoma and Paris, which the film chronicles a couple who, after falling in love in Paris, struggle to keep their relationship from falling apart after moving to the U.S. Produced by Sarah Green and Nicholas Gonda. Written and directed by Terrence Malick. We talked about who is in the movie. The music is by Hanan Townsend. And it came out actually in 2013 in the U.S., but it came out in 2012 in Venice. So, it came out at the film festival, so that's why it's on the 2012 list. Number 5, Amour. Amour is an interesting movie. A French language romance tragedy film written and directed by the Austrian filmmaker Michael Haneke, starring Jean-Louis Trintignant, Emmanuel Riva, and Isabelle Huppert. And it focuses on an elderly couple that are retired music teachers with a daughter who lives aboard, and the wife suffers a stroke, and it paralyzes the right side of her body. And it's a co-production among the French, German, and Austrian companies Les Films de Lausanne, X-Film Creative Pool, and Wega Film. Directed by Michael Haneke, produced by Margaret Menegas, Stefan Arndt, Veit Hajdushka, and Michael Katz. Came out in May of 2012 in Cannes at their film festival, September of 2012 in Germany, and October 2012 in France. And the film is 127 minutes long. Fourth, Rust and Bone. Interesting movie, a dramatic, directed by Jacques Audiard, starring Marion Cotillard and Matthias Schoenaerts, based on Craig Davidson's short story collection Rust and Bone, and it's about an unemployed 25-year-old man who falls in love with a woman who trains killer whales. We talked about how it's directed by Jacques Audiard, and it's produced by Audiard, Martine Castanelli, Pascal Kachinox, and Alex Rainyard, starring Marion Cotillard and Matthias Schoenaerts. Came out in May of 2012 in France and Belgium, 123 minutes long. In third place, Les Miserables. Obviously, we all know that as a French novel of the same name and the 1980s musical. The film was directed by Tom Hooper and scripted by William Nicholson and Alain Boublil, who wrote the original French lyrics. Claude Michael Schoenberg, who wrote the music, and Herbert Ketzmer, who wrote the English lyrics based on the novel by Victor Hugo. Produced by Tim Vaven, Eric Fellner, Deborah Hayward, and Cameron McIntosh. Screenplay by William Nicholson, Elaine Boubil, Claude Michael Schoenberg, and Herbert Ketzmer. It's obviously based on Les Miserables, which we talked about, starring Hugh Jackman, Russell Crowe, Anne Hathaway, Amanda Seyfried, Eddie Redmayne, Helena Bonham Carter, and Sacha Baron Cohen. Came out in the U.S. on Christmas of 2012, 2013 in the United Kingdom, and in December 2012 at Leicester Square. Number 2, Moonrise Kingdom, which is a coming-of-age film directed by Wes Anderson, written by Anderson and Roman Coppola. Great cast: Bruce Willis, Edward Norton, Bill Murray, Frances McDormand, Tilda Swinton, Jason Schwartzman, Bob Balaban, Harvey Keitel, and newcomers Jared Gilman and Cara Hayward. Came out in May of 2012 in the U.S. and May 16th at the film festival. 94 minutes long. Really good movie. It's on the fictional New England island of New Penzance, and it tells a story of an orphan boy who escapes from a scouting camp to unite with a pen pal and love interest, and the girl that has aggressive tendencies. So it's an interesting movie, to say the least. And number 1, Brave. Obviously the Disney Pixar movie. Very, very cute movie that Disney and Pixar put together. Came out in June 2012 in the United States, 93 minutes long, directed by Mark Andrews and Brenda Chapman, produced by Catherine Sarafane, screenplayed by Andrews, Steve Purcell, Chapman, and Irene Mecchi. The story is by Chapman, starring Kelly MacDonald, Emma Thompson, Billy Connolly, Julie Walters, Robbie Coltrane, Kevin McKidd, and Craig Ferguson. Music by Patrick Doyle. Great movie by Disney, and it is the pick as my top movie of 2012. That's it for the show today. I'll be back tomorrow going over the KBO results from tomorrow and looking ahead to Thursday. We will also reveal my pick for the Memorial Tournament coming up in golf. I'll preview and predict the NASCAR All-Star race. That should be very interesting as well. And obviously the soccer results from today as well, and any other news related to sports I'll have for you as well. Hope you guys have a great day, everyone.